Good morning. Good morning to all of you. And that last section with Lars was amazing. It was so, refreshing to hear, but also just a reminder of the last 2 years seems like it happened in flesh, and then in some ways it seems like it was so much time, I know, for all of us. So I'm so thrilled to be here with you today to talk about the journey that Aon has been on, and particularly around our people and the work that we've done. As I was reflecting about what to talk to you about, I remembered a story that happened to me about a year ago. So just think back in March of 2020. Our lives, our personal lives and our professional lives had been collided together for over a year. And my, at the time, 15-year-old daughter said to me, "Mom, you're working all the time, but I really have no idea what Aon does. And what in the world is a CPO, a Chief People Officer?" Now, I'd been in banking for 29 years, and it was very easy for me to talk to my children when they were little about what I did. So I'd say, now, Mom was a money doctor, so I helped people to be able to buy homes, learn how to save, figure out how to send their kids to school, those types of things. Easy to explain. So explaining Aon was a little bit more tricky because there's so many dynamic parts of Aon. So at this time, though, we were just in the midst of rolling out the vaccine around the world. And Aon played a key role in helping to make sure that those vaccines safely made it to the locations around the world by ensuring the carriers that were taking them to the place. We also donated the proceeds back. So I explained that to her. I said, this is one of the many things that Aon does is we make sure that we allow, through data and analytics, people to be able to have things happen, but there's also some practical things we do, like making sure vaccines get to where they need to get to. And I said, and then for me, as the Chief People Officer, it's my job to figure out how to help our colleagues. So in that case, at Aon, one of the first things that we did was we made the decision that right away, all of our colleagues would get 2 extra days of PTO, or time off, so that they could go get the vaccine and not be worried about having to take vacation time or feeling sick and having to go to work. I'm like, so I'm like, does that make sense to you? And she's like, a little. Fast forward a year later, we were talking before I was going on this trip, and she's like, again, tell me again, what does the health team do? What does the human capital team do? What does the risk team? So super engaged around the work that Aon does. Now, I will say, as the Chief Uncertainty Officer of Aon, particularly over the last 2 years, or Chief Pandemic Officer of Aon, I do know and feel like I am the luckiest Chief People Officer on the planet. And the reason why is because in addition to working with 55,000 amazing colleagues, is that I'm also a client. So I have the opportunity to go to our health solutions team. I have the opportunity to go to our human capital solutions team and ask them to help us figure things out. And Lars said it, there isn't a playbook. There isn't a road exactly of where you're going to go. We're building it as we go. And so I have the opportunity every single day to ask for that assistance and that help. So as Lars was talking, and again, I want to share a little bit about insight for us for the last few years. It became so apparent that we had to make sure that our focus on colleagues was as critical and important as clients. So the thing that I can tell you about Aon, if anyone knows an Aon colleague, is Aon colleagues love their clients. They will do anything for the clients. So important, critical. And so our focus was very, very much on if we take care of clients, then most everything else will happen. What we learned through the pandemic was that we had to have the same passion and rigor around our colleagues that we had around our clients. And that we needed to figure out a way to support them so that they could show up and be their best selves every single day. Now, all of us know, or we wouldn't be in this room, that you have to be tied to purpose. And we knew that our purpose around our clients was to help our clients to make better decisions by providing them with information, data analytics, you name it. I think about our health solutions team, many of our colleagues who are in the audience right now, right when the pandemic came out in March, by April, there was an impact report that was out showing us what the trends were so we could see. We actually had our own heat maps of what was happening throughout the world with the coronavirus, the hospitalizations to, unfortunately, the deaths. But that was there, and that information for me as a Chief People Officer was key because we could see where we were going to have the peaks around the world, where we needed to put extra attention. The amount of time that we spent, though, realizing that it was not just about helping our clients make better decisions, it was also about helping our colleagues to make better decisions for their clients and for themselves. So if you take a look at this slide, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I just want you to see that we really did build out our story over the last 2 years of who we wanted to be in terms of our balance around making a difference in the world and having an impact on the world. The one thing that I will point out is, as a people organization, we grounded ourselves in our values. And no matter what, every single time, making sure that we were united, that we were committed, and most importantly, that we were passionate about our colleagues' and clients' success, and equally passionate about it. So let me share an example of us as an incubator, or of us reaching out and needing help from our human capital solutions team. Again, Lars talked about it. The amount of inequity, the challenges around diversity are huge. And it was no different for Aon. And so back in 2020, when everything was going crazy and we didn't know what was happening next, we had moved to the pulse surveys, so we were talking to our colleagues every 6 weeks about what was going on. And we knew that we had to shift the way that we did things around diversity. So we reached out to our human capital team at the time and said, what do we do? What are the things that we can do? They provided us a roadmap of how to understand things. They provided dashboards for us to work on. They provided training for us so that we could go out and train our leaders. And we shifted to an organization that didn't have one chief diversity officer, but that truly asked all 55,000 of our colleagues to be chief diversity officers, but in particular, the top 10,000 people leaders. We needed them to own it, but we needed to give them the what, the how, the why, and help them to be able to do that. Fast forward to 2021, as an organization, for our top leaders in the organization, so the top 300 leaders, we took 20% of their compensation and said it will be tied directly to the impact we have on diversity around education, around promotions, around representation, and around recruitment. This was a big shift for us, but we had spent a year helping to show them how to do it. Now, when I think about workforce resilience, and again, what we just heard, we also knew that we had a huge opportunity around how do we work. And Lars talked about the what. It's also it's how we work together. It's not where we work together, but it's how we work together. And every time we thought we were coming out of it, as he so eloquently described, we would go back into it. And so we had to understand where we were going, what we were doing. Again, our health solutions team was out there polling and looking at best in class, what other organizations were doing. So we were able to develop something that we think is very competitive. Again, 35% of the colleagues, new colleagues in Ireland, that statistic that Robert gave you in the beginning, 35% of our colleagues are new. How do we retain them? How do we make sure that they stay? The long tenured colleagues that have been with us forever, for 20 years, 30 years, what are we doing to retain them, to keep them, getting them to stay? And then what are we doing to attract talent? How are we attracting it? So again, based on data and analytics, we knew that there had to be different types of job categories. We went to 3. One is office, so maybe the person that does have to be in the office because they're in charge of making sure that the lights go on and the air conditioning, whatever it might be. We also knew that some colleagues would be remote and virtual because that is where they're most efficient and most effective. But it's that hybrid piece, it's that definition of what hybrid means that became so important. Again, no playbook, nothing to go off of other than that we've seen what we've seen the last 2 years and maybe research we've done before, but never in an environment that we're all living in today. You live where you work where you live. You've figured out ways to hopefully have better opportunities with your family, although I think that there's a lot to be said there too about how much people have worked, and we know it's been extreme. So hybrid for us really became about going in somewhere, being with clients for moments that matter. All of you have heard it. I'm sure you've heard it the last couple days, we time versus me time, when it really matters. And we now are at a place where we think there's 4 reasons why you would want to be together. 1 is clients, 2 is coaching, 3 is collaboration, And finally, what I think is the most important, which is celebration. Celebration of the things that you're doing together. The fact that we get to be here today together is pretty amazing. And opportunities for just to celebrate the fact that we're here today and that we can see each other's faces. This is also evolving for us, though, when we know we have to continue to look and see what's happening, because every person has a different story. So we have colleagues that the best situation for them is to be in the office because they don't have a great workspace at home, or because there's too many people living at home with multi-generations. And so the flexibility is there. But what I will say to you that's most important is that workforce resilience isn't about finance and it isn't about real estate. It's about people. And it's about what's best for our colleagues to be the most effective they can be and the most efficient that they can be, which requires us to take a full look at the colleague, their full, entire, authentic self, and not just a part of it, but all of it. And then how do we create these high-performing teams? So I'm going to show you a quick video of some of the things that we've been doing at Aon, just around workforce resilience, to break it up a little bit, and then I'll come right back to you. So let's cue up that video.
Over the last decade, the world of work has changed dramatically. For individuals and the organizations they serve, a fundamental shift in where, how, and when work gets done. It's a change that can cause a disconnect between a company and its employees. But a partnership with Aon can help by making decisions that create a more flexible, engaged, and resilient workforce. Decisions on how to manage the evolving structure of work, solutions to achieve a healthier and more inclusive team, choosing new reward structures that aim to maximize profit and engagement, providing ways for individuals to plan their own futures. From showing how to stay ahead as work evolves, to helping individuals and organizations realize their shared ambitions, from boosting performance through employee health and well-being programs, to solutions that provide for a secure retirement, Aon's experience and expertise, global understanding, and advanced analytics ensure that every client is better informed and better advised so that they can make better decisions. Whatever the next decade brings, Aon is in the business of better decisions.
So when you think about your own organization, or hopefully if we're working with you, where are you when you think about workforce resilience? And what are the lessons that we can help each other learn? One of the biggest lessons for me as a Chief People Officer at Aon and as a human being was that we needed to talk more about things we hadn't talked about before. So a few years ago, during COVID, in June of 2020, my husband had major heart surgery, and it was crazy. I did not have any hesitation in sharing with Greg Case or with my colleagues that I was going to be out because I was taking care of my husband and his heart. He had heart disease. He'd had it for years. We'd been watching it. Super healthy guy, but this was just it. Our family went through it. He's totally fine. But it was okay for me to talk about that. But if I were to talk about the fact that my family history had depression or anxiety, that there was mental wellness issues that we had in my family, that never would have been okay. There was a stigma around mental wellness. We even went so far in the corporate world to say, we'll talk about emotional wellness. We'll talk about physical wellness. We'll even talk about financial wellness with our colleagues. Oh, but don't go to the mental, because that's, people get really uncomfortable. One of the things that the pandemic gave to us was the ability for us to talk about that, which to me means that we gave our colleagues the opportunity to be able to bring their full selves, their full authentic selves into the workplace, and also put responsibility on the HR and the people organizations to make sure that we are looking at the entire colleague. So again, on a journey, I'll just share this last bit with you. We knew as an organization that we needed to test out how we were doing from a resilience factor. So if you look at these indexes around meaning and purpose and mental health, emotional health, I won't go through all of them, relationships, community, we needed to be able to give our leaders the gift of being able to see how are we doing with this So we were able to do this assessment work to figure out at Aon where are we doing well. Each leader a gift for them individually to look inward and see where they had opportunities, helping them both personally and professionally, helping them to lead their teams better. Then we were able to take this information and be able to look at blends, not taking anyone's personal information, no one saw that, but to see where we had gaps as an organization and what things that we knew we needed to work on. From this, we concluded that we needed to have a chief well-being officer, which we just announced a couple of weeks ago, which is Rachel Fellows, who actually developed the Human Sustainability Index in partnership with our human capital team, and it's making a difference. But again, it's a journey, an evolution of where we're going. And I just want to finish with this last thing. I want to say thank you for being here, and I mean thank you for being here. Because at the end of the day, this is all about people. It's all about relationships. It's all about what we do together. And my hope for each and every one of you is that in the last 2 years, you figured out a way to love what you do, but also are figuring out a way to lead a better balanced life, not a work-life balance, but a balanced life. Thank you so much.